Okay. Welcome everyone to another session of Let's Talk Real Estate Investing. In this series, we speak to real estate investing professionals to talk about their strategies, what they're doing, so that it can help you with your strategy, because I believe that every person's strategy should be unique. It should be unique to them to give you the competitive edge. We are all coming into real estate investing with different skills, different values, different likes, dislikes, the amount of money we have, the amount of time we have. And it's important for you to create your strategy that works for you. But it's nice to hear what other people are doing, to be able to pull an idea from this person, an idea from that person, then to create your own, instead of recreating the wheel where you don't have to do it. My name is Debbie Balfour, and I am a real estate investor and a real estate investing success coach. And I help my clients create their personalized real estate investing strategy, which includes the business around real estate, not just the real estate investing strategy, but creating that business around real estate investing so that you can scale efficiently and be able to start enjoying time and financial freedom as you build your business. So my guest today, I am so excited to introduce you to, is Alejandra Moreno. And Ali is a friend of mine. She's amazing. And I really wanted to have her on this, on this podcast, because she's dynamic CEO of Honeybee Development with expertise in strategic planning, financial management, and business growth. Passion about building connections and empowering others. She is a strong force of execution in every endeavor that Ali does. As a serial entrepreneur, Alejandra possesses the Midas touch. She's consistently turning ideas into successful ventures with a proven track record. She has successfully overseen the operations of 8 multi-million-dollar companies. Now, I don't know how Ali has done it in her time. I think she, is maybe she's got a secret to to youth or something, because you don't look old enough to to have so much success in your life and done so much. So it's just truly amazing and very inspirational, and I'm so excited to have you here today, Ali. So welcome.
Oh my God, what an intro. I am humbled and I'm so grateful to be here, and let's have fun.
Yes, definitely.
Anyway, let's get down to the weeds and let's see how we can support. Our mission is to be able to support others in their own journey. And if you can learn from my experiences, what I've done right, what I've done wrong, I mean, what's better than that, right?
That's awesome. So I know our topic today is really around knowing your personal investment roadmap. But before we get into it, let's talk about your journey in real estate. So can you tell us a bit about how you got into real estate, and a summary of how you got to where you are now?
Oh boy, we would have to go way back.
So probably we'll have to shorten it. We'll have to.
So a few decades back, well, I came to Canada in my early 20s. And at that point, I did not start in real estate. I started doing import-export processes. That, in a funny way, brought me into real estate. So when I just started, I decided that I was going to do my first venture here. And I had an experience with furniture and design and architectural building. So I said, okay, let's do a retail store. So I leased a property in downtown Gastown, Vancouver. And it was a heritage building. It was abandoned for 15 years. It was a hotel. And I got a good deal out of it. So that was my very first experience here in Canada. And it was very challenging. It was very challenging, but we pulled it through. We got a massive heritage restoration in downtown Vancouver within 6 months. And so that was my first stepping stone into what the city wanted, like architects and financing and fundraising and all those beautiful things. And I'm going to fast track because I've done a few things after that. But you asked me for the first one.
Yeah.
That was my first one. And I now have different projects in different strategies. And I think that's the beauty of being able to do a whole lot. So in between, I got my first home, the typical conversion, adding units, getting an Airbnb experience, getting a portfolio in there, leverage your existing assets, and then from there, buying land, analyzing that land, getting partnerships in, funding it, there's just so many steps to it. And so right now in Honeybee Development, we have at finished product about $500 million in development assets.
Nice.
So it went from one little, lease project with an operating company component to it to grow into a bit of a larger operation. But the basics of any business is the same, and that's what you teach, Debbie.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't really matter the size of the project. The basics and the fundamentals are actually there for everybody. So if in your investing journey, you're starting from like one condo, you have to do the same analysis as if you were doing a 500 unit condominium for sale. So I think we can start from there, maybe. So if somebody is looking to get into real estate or you're in the midst of it, how do you connect your actual reality with where you want to get to? And in the meantime, it's your environment that plays a big role too. So I'll leave it there for you to continue the conversation.
Well, let's get into it. Let's get deeper into it. What what are you looking for in you said an environment has a role to play. What do you mean by that?
So when you're looking at your environment, there's many points of consideration. So when you're doing real estate investing, there's always a cycle. And since my early 20s, I've been in 2.5 cycles. And in every cycle, you're going to have ups and downs, and it can get chaotic, but there's also lots of opportunities. So it really depends on the cycle and the market that you want to get into. And so let's say that we're looking into a project. I don't know, choose a strategy that you would like to talk about today, because we've done a few of those. So choose one that you've been listening around your network that you would like to get deeper into. Like, do you want to do land development, construction,
Yeah,
and
I
rental?
think land development is a hot topic right now, and I think it's something that you guys as a company are deep into. Like that's the strategy that you're truly working on a lot on right now. So let's pick that one and talk about that.
Okay. So right now in land development, there is a huge change because the government has instated a larger density um, request, to put it that way, gently, and to all the municipalities. So right now, the cycle is quite interesting because depending on whether you have land or not, things will change. So right now we're May 2024. In about a month and a half, there's going to be many changes in most of the municipalities, especially here in BC. So that, for example, as a cycle, changes many things. So if you already have, like we do in BC, we have right now 4 different projects that are going through the rezoning process, or they're waiting for permits.
Mm-hmm.
And so we have already submitted a bunch of different, and we have worked with many different professionals in the area to get that through. And in a month and a half, things may change.
So does that mean you're going to have to go back, or are those grandfathered?
We could go back. So when we were doing a few projects in Edmonton, same thing happened. So they overruled the rezoning requirements for eightplexes, for example. So we already had to submit it, and in 2 months after, things weren't even necessary. So there's excellent things that come out of it, but there's also some challenges that might come with it as well. So I'll give you an example, another example. So, well, in the Edmonton projects, we didn't need to do anything else, and we just moved forward, and it was actually great. And there's 2 projects that we have in Nanaimo right now, and one is waiting for a potential land assembly. And that's phenomenal. Like, that's excellent. Thank God that one we have not submitted yet. So
You'll be able to work with the new rules and
yes, so that one is pretty phenomenal. So if you're in that process of this cycle, it works great. But I have another one that is already submitted, and we should be getting the like first hearing in the next month or so. And we've paid a lot of fees to lots of professionals to get that baby going. So if in a month and a half, we are able to go even higher than what we already asked for, then we have to make that decision. Okay, is the burn rate of the project worth the additional density? Or do we just follow through with what we have and we just carry on? So
So it's not just like that additional density, just from the planning, perspective, getting the approvals is one thing, but what are some of the work that you have to go back and redo as a result of that kind of decision?
oh boy. So there's a lot to consider. So you go back to the basics like civil. So normally the cities, when they're doing their planning, the OCP will say, okay, you can build this amount, and this is what we want to see in the next 10 years in this particular area. And then the city might not have all the services in place for that level of density. So let's say that the city does not have that level of services, then you need to add in your pro forma and say, okay, if I want X amount of additional density, I might need to have a super high cost to get those services in, like sewage. It's a big one. So when you're saying, oh, this is so exciting and we might get all these units, a lot of people don't think about the basics are not even in your control. It's actually the city, because that can add to your pro forma amounts that might break the project. So even if you had that granted density, you might not want to push forward. Another example, we have a subdivision in Langford, and that we actually signed the documents last week for the subdivision. It's ready to go. And we could, with a potential new bylaw, add 4 plexes instead of 1 main home plus a suite. And that was very exciting. And so we ran back to the city and we said, hey, how are we doing? The first question, we didn't even get into anything else, just civil. And the city said, you know what? We cannot support sewage for 44 units instead of 22. So if we wanted to get going with double the density, let's say, on that particular plot of land, we would have to upgrade the sewage system and hydro. Like, there's just so many things that get into it. And if the city has no plans on getting that as part of their budget, you would have to do it.
It's your budget, but also the time too now, because it's
And
not readily available.
and permits, and then you would have to go back to the drawing board almost to pretty much everything that you've done. So that's why I always talk about cycles. So so it depends on where are you with the project. So if you're in a planning stage, then the assumptions that you're looking for when you're building a project would change. And so you have to go back to your drawing board if you're just getting started and say, okay, what would my pro forma look like? So if I'm gonna be buying this, what's my burning rate? Is it my own capital? Am I fundraising it? What avenue am I fundraising? What are the costs associated with that? What financing system can I use so I can leverage as much the most amount of money from the bank structure and minimize the amount of equity. So, but when you're doing land development, then you're going into a next big chunk of conversation, which is the financing point of view.
Mm-hmm.
So when you're buying something that's bare land, which is where you can get the most amount of return, let's say, okay, I'm going to do a master plan in this 2 acres of land. When you're looking at that, the financing of it, it's a bit more challenging. So let's say that you have a house and you want to upgrade the house, then normally the loan to value that you would be getting is about between 75 down to 65%. So your equity requirement would be between 35 to 45%. But if you're doing land only, you're normally looking at 50% loan to value.
Mm-hmm.
So then when you're doing your pro formas, if you're doing only land, you have to add that to the mix. So for example, the subdivision that we're doing, obviously it's bare land. Whereas the project that we have in Nanaimo, they have triplexes and then a larger home that we Airbnb. So there's different strategy that you can also combine.
Right.
Which is a lot of fun. So in Nanaimo, what we did is we put a little bit of lipstick on the older units that we know we're going to take down, but we are getting some rent in. So the burn rate on those projects is not as high.
Right. Because you're able to, while you're waiting to do all of your planning and getting your permits, you're actually being able to rent out.
Exactly.
It's not sitting, it's not
Flat
as
sitting.
raw land sitting there that you're not doing anything with.
Exactly. So then the loan to value gets better because there's an income component to it. You know, there's a home in there. So the financing changes dramatically based on that. So when you're doing land development, that's the second thing that you have to assess. Am I going to do bare land? What kind of land development do I want to do? Do I have some structure that I can get some money from until I wait for the permits to come through? So things to consider in the very early stages. How much am I willing to pay per square foot? That's a big one. So you're going to say, okay, I have in my pro forma all my expenditures. How long will it take? The contingency that goes with it. And then you would go into like stage 3, right? Before you even do anything, you have to consider what would be your area that you would want to work. And so that alone will take some research. So it really depends on where are you in terms of if you're getting started. So if you
The
have
phases of land development where you are.
yeah, and also like your experience.
Mm-hmm.
Land development is not there's a lot of excitement around, and I get it. And I think it's a beautiful, beautiful strategy. Like we love it. I love what we do. I love seeing beautiful structures go up. It's wonderful. But it comes with a lot of knowledge requirements.
Yeah.
So if you don't have a partner or if you don't have a mentor that has done it before multiple times, I would probably start looking for one.
Right. And you can hire these people too. You don't have to, it doesn't have to be within your partnership, but it's as long as your team, you've got to make sure you have a team and, consultants, etc., that can guide you. I know that it isn't definitely not for the faint-hearted. And yes, you make people think, oh, you make lots of money from land development, but you can also lose a lot of money in land development. And even before you even get there. So I know personally, I just went through a plot of land that we were looking at, and we were really excited about the possibilities of it. But we went through due diligence, and $67,000 later, it's not feasible.
Correct.
So, that's money you've got to be prepared to lose. And you do this quite a few times before you actually find that piece of land that's going to work well for you.
Absolutely. There's just so much that's why having the experience and the capital. So you do need a deeper layer of capital when you're talking strategy. So
Mhm.
I'll give you another example. If you're underwriting, there's lower, like the barrier of entry for land development, I find that it's a bit higher than, for example, buying a multi-unit. And the reason being is, one, the biggest one for me would be knowledge and
Mhm.
team building. It doesn't come overnight. So you have to build it. And even if you build it, there's many layers in the land development world that people sometimes overlook. So that's why I love coming into podcasts, just to, if you're into the journey, and I actually do a lot of calls with many young developers. It's like, okay, where do I start? I'm like, okay, do this, do this. Did you think about this? Did you look into this? So you can expedite your journey through mine.
Yeah.
In the multifamily space, the requirements, for example, to get financing is different. So it would be very challenging to do a CMHC program, for example, for higher leverage in a land development deal. So when you're doing a multifamily over 6 units, 5 units, then it's probably a bit different on how much leverage you can take from the building without having to qualify yourself for the mortgage. So in our case, for all our developments, you have to personally guarantee those loans. So that,
Or your investors. So there has to be the net worth
well,
there.
then we would have to get
Mhm.
into a corporate structure conversation,
Right.
because if you're going to be doing investors, you can do two ways. You can do like a regular shareholder structure, depending on the size of the deal.
Mhm.
And so what that means in a regular corporation, you would put the asset in there and you're going to say, okay, if I'm going to be JVing with somebody, that's normally a JV structure. And you're going to say, okay, I'm going to be the working partner. I'm going to have my financial partners, and they all come with a qualifying requirement as financial partners, plus the capital. So that could work. You do the work.
Right.
Where, depending on the size, then if you're going to have more than, I believe that I've seen and I've experienced, like 6 investors, then it gets tricky, because not a lot of financial entities will want to take that file because it gets incredibly convoluted.
Mhm.
So when you're going to be doing more than potentially even 3, 4 shareholders, I would probably jump into a GPLP structure, like a
Right.
general partnership, limited partnership. And a limited partnership can have up to 50 investors. So but then when you're doing a GPLP structure, you also have to figure out how big of the project can take that structure. So as you go higher in the structures, legally speaking, the cost also goes up.
Of course. Yes, definitely.
And that's part of your underwriting, and making sure that your knowledge base is there.
Mhm.
So the learning curve from one small for example, our Nanaimo properties are on the smaller side. And those projects have a corporate structure. Easy
Right.
peasy, no problem. Now, when we are talking about just talking about Vancouver Island, the subdivision has over 30 investors. So that one has a GPLP structure. And then you go into, if you're going to have over 30 investors in one project, then you might be able to offer that investment opportunity to people who are looking to place register funds.
Right.
And then you can leverage your register funds into deep equity deals. So then that needs another structure, which is an MFT, like a mutual fund trust. A lot of people are quite acquainted with that acronym. So,
Mhm.
I mean, it really depends on your journey and how large would the project need, and where's your break-even point?
Yeah. And the thing is to remember here too is all of these, as you're going up these structures like you're talking about, it's time and money. So it's both.
Right.
It takes longer to create that structure. Like an MFT would take longer to get that in place and more costly from a legal perspective also
Absolutely.
to get
Absolutely.
to do those. So these are all things that that people need to consider because time is money also as
That's basically
projects are
it.
ticking along.
And exactly. So the project's taking long, then your IRR, your internal rate of return will decrease because it takes a bit longer. So you want to make sure that, and that I think that is one of the biggest risks in land development right now. The red tape that we are encountering
Mm-hmm.
is quite deep. And funny enough, we are going through this wonderful time where government is saying, let's increase the density, let's do this. We need more housing, but that also puts a lot of pressure in the municipalities. And the municipalities might not have the budget to implement all of what's required. So the red tape, although they want to create this change, they want to help you with the density, they are
They're not
backlogged.
structurally equipped to do that. Yeah.
They are not designed or equipped to do it. So that's creating a little bit of a challenge as well. So your timelines, if you're thinking that you're going to get rezoning in BC, at least like in a year and a half, 2 years, it might even go past that, especially if they pass all this higher density that they have no idea how they're going to restructure. And that you have to incorporate that into your projects.
Definitely. So a lot of real estate investors right now, I'm hearing like talk to, oh, well, they're increasing density, so then I can get more on this. And what we're hearing from you is that that's not necessarily the case because number one, like, okay, this is like a provincial government rule that's come up, but the municipalities don't have the structure for it. So you may think, oh, this piece of land, or this house, I can knock it down and now I can put a fourplex on it or a sixplex. But what we've heard from you is that may not be like it may be zoned, but that's about it because unless you want to take on the cost of upgrading the hydro and the sewage and those kind of things, that it may not be able to sustain that. So before jumping into purchasing a property,
You
that
have to be really careful.
you should be calling the cities to find out, is this actually, can this actually support that?
I'm going to tell you something that I actually looked it up last week because I live in North Vancouver and we
Mhm.
have a bunch of projects that are building right here. And so I looked into where I could potentially start looking into land. And if you go into the studies in North Vancouver alone, only 14% of the land will be available for this. In Vancouver, I don't think they're getting, I think it was like 17. Don't like remember the one here in Northern quite great, but like Vancouver is even lower because there's not a whole lot of areas that they're going to allow this additional, either they don't have the servicing or in the case of North Vancouver, the slopes, then there's also creeks and all this
So the
limitations.
setbacks, you need to consider all
Oh
of
my
those
God,
things
there's
will be,
so much
yeah.
to it. So your due diligence is going to have to be quite deep. The best one here, well, in the Lower Mainland here in Vancouver, I think that Burnaby will have the most amount of land available for increasing density, but it's not going to happen overnight. So you have to give yourself some time. And if you already have the land, that's great news. That's really
Mhm.
good. But if you're looking to acquire, I think it's a different conversation and you need to be very cautious, especially with time. I'm not saying that it won't happen. I'm just saying that your burning rate when you're looking into land should have a lot of contingency before you make a decision.
Definitely. But even if you're sitting on a house and you have that land, don't knock down that house before you do your
Oh,
due
please don't.
diligence. Don't knock it down before you
Don't
do your
knock
due diligence
anything. No,
because
no.
like we're hearing, there are underground creeks and things like that you're not aware of that you
Of
need to test
course.
because if you're taking a bigger piece of that property now. You may own a bigger piece of land, but we don't know that we can actually put a structure
Of
on
course,
it
like
to
you
take the
have
fire away.
water management studies, you have geological studies, you have forest studies, you have, well, the oil tanks are very usual. You have civil studies, the geotechnics. Like, there's just so many professionals that are involved in one land development deal. And so having somebody in your team that's very knowledgeable, that has done this before, that can really help you put that pro forma and the assumptions incredibly cautious and larger levels of capital. Right now we're encountering, and this is something that has happened since last year, there's a lot more caution around fundraising and capital, and not only land development or real estate in general. I have many friends in the tech industry. Same, great restructurings in the tech world. So
Mm-hmm.
in every single area, once COVID hit, like backtracking a little bit, when COVID hit and there was such a great level of printing of money in Canada, we are just starting to see the aftermath of our macroeconomic real situation.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not only about the real estate and the capacity to increase density, like all these factors in your environment will also tremendously affect, because then you can see in real estate alone the interest rates
Yep.
are
The price of
crazy. Like
borrowing money.
the
Yeah.
pricing of borrowing is really, really high right now. Will you see a deep decrease in that? Probably not. Like, I know that they will. I don't have a crystal ball, but I believe that we're gonna see a decrease in interest rates, probably a quarter every quarter. So it will not change dramatically in the next near future. It will start getting better and better, but that also needs to take into consideration when you're looking into getting into land development. But I'll give you the other beautiful coin in land development. So we have a project in Kingston, Ontario,
Mm-hmm.
and we did our numbers with 30 units. And the government, the beautiful municipality, just granted us another 11 units. And so it depends also on the municipality and how great. There's great municipalities that are fantastic at what they do, and they are ready to get this going, and their mandates are actually acting faster. So that's the risk that you're also taking. Like, you don't know what you're going to be
Yeah.
facing. So we took the leap last, actually almost a year and a half ago. So we acquired that. We were already at site plan, ready to go, minor revisions. And then we just threw that in. Hey, can you help us get more density? You really could use more in
Use
this.
it, right.
And the municipality said yes. So there's also amazing wins. Imagine what that will do to our pro formas for that
Yep.
project. Oh my God. Like, I was flipping and I was jumping. 11 units in a multifamily doesn't seem like a lot. It is a lot. It's almost a third additional density in one plot of land. That's fabulous news. But I mean, we didn't know that we were going to get
Mm-hmm.
it. So, I mean, take everything with a grain of salt, my friends. Like, that's all I have
Definitely.
to say. And really be cautious when you're acquiring, and give yourself a lot of buffers everywhere, like building, construction, burning rate, costing, and try to acquire the land at the best. The beautiful thing also about this time is that there's a lot of opportunity for purchasing.
Negotiation, not like when,
Negotiation,
yeah.
like, so
Mm-hmm.
every time where you, like, people get afraid and everybody starts talking about like possible not great things that are happening, there's always opportunity amongst chaos.
Yeah.
So I would love to leave this in the most beautiful and positive notes, because there's lots of possibility. And our investors that are in our Harmony Flats project just made a killing, and everybody's like, oh no, no, we did great, right?
Because yes, but as long as you have multiple exit strategies, as long as you are conservative with your numbers, like all of those kind of things, definitely, yeah. So, we said that your topic would be around like your personal real estate investing stuff. So what are some reflections that that people need to do to in order to assess whether their investments are personally right for them?
Absolutely. Oh my God, there's so many takeaways from what I've experienced. Oh, Debbie, there's just so much to talk when it comes to what you've done right, what you could have done better when you look back, oh my goodness, there's just so many things that you learn with each project, and many things that I've told you today actually are part of that story.
Mm-hmm.
So, okay, let me choose any particular area that you want me to go back and dig down into what I could have done better.
Well, I mean, let's pick something simple, like
Okay.
where you would say, had I like, did I, if I had the knowledge I have now, I would have gone back to, and these would be the things that I would have done to make sure that it was right for me.
Oh my God, there's a good one. This is a very good one. And okay, so I was looking at a property and I had put an offer, the numbers made sense, it was a good deal, all those beautiful things. And the density that we could have gotten was wonderful. And when we removed subjects, and when I was going through financing, and the amount of money for the land wasn't too gigantic or anything, it was okay. But the appraisal came through, and I was so positive of the valuation of the land based on what I could see. Guess what? The
It was a lot
appraisal
lower.
was a lot lower. And I flipped and I couldn't believe it. So, lesson learned, never remove subjects without an appraisal before. So you can put the conditions on your contract and say, subject
Condition, yeah,
to
yeah.
appraisal received and confirmed valuation. So, so that one was a crazy one. I just couldn't believe that the appraisal came with that number. So that would be something to really, when you're just getting started, and it's such a simple thing to miss. And it happened to me. And funny enough, I've talked to so many people about this, and it's more common than you think.
Yeah, well, because we think we compare to the people next to us, next to that piece of land and things like that, and we think we're so knowledgeable that and we get, it's the emotion, the excitement of what you can
Yep.
do with it, and all of those kind of things. So we get a bit carried away with that.
Absolutely. So that was one of my first big lessons, because what that means also is that the bank will take that appraisal, and your loan to value is going to be based on that appraisal. So when you're thinking, oh, great, this is going to cost me this much, and your pro forma is saying, okay, 65% loan to value on this beautiful project, all of a sudden you have a 55% loan to value because your appraisal came so much lower than they are still giving you 65 loan to value, but the valuation of the land is lower. So you just lost 10% on the potential financing from the main bank because of it. So that's exactly what happened to me, actually. So story short, I had to put a lot more money to close on the property because I already removed subjects. So that was something that I could have done better. And then, of course, it will never happen to me again. But back in the day, it was a huge lesson. The other one, depending on the size of your project. So if, let's say that you've done this before, you've done a few, you build a few projects, you have done a nice cycle, and you say, okay, I am ready to partner with somebody. So I would probably say one of my biggest lessons when I started partnering was I never thought that a partnership agreement, because I believe in people and, I'm a very trustworthy person. And I will always be a trustworthy person. I still believe in people and I love everybody. But having a legal document that will define your responsibilities and also other people's responsibilities in a legal contract, I think it's very wise. And you would not believe how many people I talk to that have massive partnerships and they don't have a partnership agreement in place. So there's one thing called a universal partnership agreement that you can get from a lawyer. And a lot of people say like, oh yeah, but do I need to invest in something like that? I think we can do it. I would highly recommend you seeking legal advice when you're creating your first partnerships. So that one is massive. In one of my first partnerships, so when I was in my 20s, I did my first fundraising for my first project that I was talking to you about.
Mm-hmm.
And so I raised my first $500,000 when I was in my mid-20s. And so I'm very used to having investors in my team. But that has a different connotation when you're doing investors as a shareholders as a non-voting than having partners that are actually active. So having a clear differentiation between what does it mean to be an active partner? What does it mean to be a passive partner? Okay, are you active? Are you passive? What are my responsibilities? What are yours? And having that set up in a legal structure, I think that is very important. And so that is something else that I didn't do. And when I needed to use that agreement in a partnership that didn't go the way I planned it to go, it was messy and it was painful. So that was a huge lesson for me. And that partnership didn't last more than 3 months because I realized that it was not a partnership that was going to really work out. And I'm very grateful, knock on wood, everybody left happy and okay in good terms and everything, but it was painful
Well,
because there was
there's value to that. It's not so much that you plan for the partnership to go south or anything,
not at
but
all.
it's like, but just the conversations that you need to have in order to put that partnership in place makes it very crystal clear and helps for your planning process. Like who's going to
Absolutely.
do this when this happens, or or not stepping on toes, or not having anything fall through the gaps also of
I
that you
think
didn't
the
think
gaps
of.
is a big one. And also what happens if somebody dies? You're never expecting something like that to happen.
You don't want to think about it because it's
You
such
don't want to,
a negative thought. It's
yeah,
like doing a will.
exactly. It's almost like starting your marriage, asking for a life insurance policy or something. Like I know it sounds a bit counterintuitive because you don't want to say, "Oh, I don't want that person to feel that I'm looking for."
That you're killing them off.
Exactly. But I find that it's so valuable. The process of creating the partnership agreement, making sure that everybody is aligned with their responsibilities, and also the ones that are, for example, my silent partners. It's very important that they understand that if you're signing as a limited partnership, you are a limited partnership because your liabilities are minimal to your investment. So I take on all the responsibility. I actually sign off and I guarantee all those loans, not you. If you're doing like a GPLP structure,
Mhm.
but if you're doing a shareholder structure, then everybody, unless it's a non-voting, and even when you're non-voting, you have to define, okay, are you co-signing this? Are you not co-signing? What happens if there's a capital call requirement? Who's coming, or when does somebody come into a capital call? Let's say that you're holding an asset for the long term and you're a financial partner. These are all questions that have come up because over the years, I think I have over a dozen partnerships right now. And every single one is unique, and every single project is also different. So you want to make sure that, okay, so the beautiful thing of having one partnership in the beginning that didn't go the way I wanted it to go, I call them my dark angels. They are angels.
Yes, that
They're
you
just a
learn
bit
from.
dark.
And hopefully it's not as costly at
And
that time.
yes, like it can
Right.
cost you quite
Mhm.
a bit. I was very grateful that it didn't really cost me more than time and a lot of spirit enlargement. I would probably say that because it was painful. I didn't expect it to go the way it went,
Mhm.
but it really taught me the importance of creating that very orderly, very nice structure. And I'm able to guide all my partners moving forward towards that. And now I have a checklist.
Yeah, I think a lot of us just want to run into like the sexy part, which is the doing, right? But any successful business starts with a business plan. So same thing with real estate investing. You
Yes.
have to put those things in place because it's amazing. You spend that little bit of time up front, then the rest of it just goes so
Easy.
much faster and smoother.
And that's my third one that I want to get to is exactly that. So people think that almost real estate goes outside the borders of what a business is. And I want to backtrack to that exact opposite. So any business person can do real estate. But
Mhm.
if you're not a business person and you want to get into real estate, you need to become a business person before jumping into real estate. It's very important because I've heard a lot of people that say, oh, I don't like numbers, but I love buying things. Oh, I'm not really into business, but I can share. And I've heard this a lot of times. And I say, okay, you need structure that operates, and you need the structure to be able to hold your acquisitions. The amount of work that is embedded within one acquisition is massive. Like if I showed you my corporate structure, like you'll go crazy, you'll flip. And we are a small development company. We are only 7.
But I
So
think that's just as relevant for someone that's doing some single family homes. If they want to do anything more than one,
you need a
you
structure.
need a structure.
You need a structure. You cannot go away. So the first thing, because we do a lot of, we do a lot of networking events, and I love sharing my stories and what I've done right, what I've done wrong, like, hey, careful with this. So I would probably say, if you want to get into this business, the first thing that I would probably recommend you setting up would be your programs. Like, do you have an accounting program? Even if it's one property, get it really sleek and beautiful and organized. Like that QuickBooks needs to be shiny and gorgeous so you can see. Because everything that goes into your Excel spreadsheet when you're doing your analysis will translate pretty soon into your accounting process. And you can see you need historical data.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one would be your marketing and your sales. Like, oh yeah, but it's just me right now. Well, no. Make sure that you have a CRM that you can plug every person that you know. So you can start creating your own story. So you probably see us online and on socials every week. It's very important that people get to see you and see what you build and what you do and what your team is doing, and share what you've done right and share what you've done wrong. So get out there and start connecting with people. So this business is a people's business. It's not only land. It's not only creating beautiful structures. I can tell you that 90% of our business is connections. And I'm not only talking about if you're thinking of fundraising, because a lot of people come to me because we do fundraising for our projects, and they ask me a lot of things around that. And I'm like, no, it doesn't start there. It starts building connections with realtors. So they can send you the best plots of lands because they like you. They see an opportunity and they think of you. Like you need to stay in the mind of people.
relevant and let people know what you're doing.
Exactly.
Definitely. So many of my clients come to me and I say, are you using social media, or let's set up your social media. And you go, I don't need to do it as yet because I don't have any opportunities. And it's like you don't go out there when you have an opportunity, go, oh, here I am, by the way, and come and invest with me.
No,
You
it
need
doesn't
to
work that way.
create that relationship before that, know, like, and trust. So,
Absolutely.
right? Yeah.
Absolutely. But it starts with, so if you're doing the fundraising portion, that's one end. But when you're setting up your teams,
Your looking for a good accountant, a good
accountants,
lawyer.
lawyers,
Yeah.
right now we have our fund managers and our architects and all our professionals. We have, depending on the province that we're operating, there's just so many wonderful connections. And act within the best capacity of your heart and always give them something first. Like, I think one of the beautiful things, because life goes up and life goes down. And when things get tough, when things get difficult, when the cycles are not what you expect them to be, all you have is your integrity and your capacity to operate and connect again. So you would be amazed, Debbie, to and I realized this year. I can pick up the phone and I have the most amazing doors open for me. And I think it's because I realized the importance of building bridges and not burning them.
Definitely.
So wherever you're walking on earth, no matter what you're doing, just make sure that you're building and putting beautiful seeds in your bridges. So by the time you have to cross back those bridges, there's wonderful flowers.
Well, you never know when you need it. I mean, I've given this example before in last year when I lost my home. Um, it was my real estate network that came out in full force to help me
Absolutely.
through that.
Absolutely.
So it's, there are times where you'll be giving, but there are other times when you don't even know that this is going to come. I've never been a person. I've always been a person I have a martyr complex. Right. So I'm always the person that wants to help people, that wants to give, etc. And never, I don't
But your
ever
karma
want
is
to
beautiful.
ask for help, but I had no choice to ask for help when I lost everything. And so,
But Debbie, and that's because you're not like, it's funny. One of the main, because I'm big on personal development and
mhm,
spiritual development as well. And for some people, it's really easy to give and it's really hard to receive. And I think
that was
that,
me.
and that is one wonderful exercise to say, hey, I am worthy of receiving help. I am worthy of allowing, I've been giving so much. It's okay to receive. And that applies to crazy things that are super like dense in material, like a refinancing. So we needed to refinance a property, and it wasn't easy. It was a difficult refinancing. And Mimi is amazing. By the way, if people that don't know us, Mimi is my other half. She's my work wife. She's amazing. And she believes in the same as me, and she builds amazing relationships. And when we needed somebody that could pull through for us, she just had to pick up the phone and say, hey, I'm having this problem. I have this difficulty. Can you help me out? And it's incredible to see how people go over their ways to really help you out. And so, and I see it every time and every time, and I see the miracles. I'll tell you another story, crazy story. The thing, we have a lot of projects. So we have 7 projects in the construction company right now, plus our other 9 that we're developing. So it's busy. Like, the team is really busy.
Mhm.
And all the projects have a lot of challenges. Like, land development is not for the soft or faint of heart, I tell you. So I'll tell you. So we have this project, and it's a 7,000 square feet house. It has 2 suites and another potential suite and a laneway house in the back. We're exiting this summer. And we started building this thing with no power. We're finishing the house with no power. So we've gone through generators to get this through and fulfill our responsibility, but it's been crazy. And we're almost done. We're 96% done.
Will the house have power when you're finished?
It doesn't have power yet.
Oh my
So
goodness.
BC Hydro, they are known to have lots of delays these days. So it's a problem. But we said, you know what? Because of it, and we have so many stories to tell around that, we went a year ago and we started this process. And a month ago, they said, we're going to start designing. And we said, what are you talking about? Like, we've been doing this for a year and we've been going back and forth and then tell us all these things. The typical problem, very well what that looks like. And so, you know what one of our team members did? So he goes and he found all the emails of the CEOs, VPs, everybody in BC Hydro. And he emailed them the most beautiful email. And you won't believe the CEO replied. And within 2 weeks, the issues.
Power.
We're going to get power in the next few weeks, yes.
Wow.
But the way, we always say the honeybee way, it was respectful, it was clear, it was very well intended with lots of respect to their team, because we understand when there's challenges, like we're not foreign to challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Again, it's a business situation, but it's also people situation. And the way it was handled, it was so beautiful that the result is good. So right now, I know that there's a lot of uncertainty in the market and the interest rates are up and the markets are not where you want them to be yet. But you keep building these relationships and this too shall pass. And while you also have the opportunity to build these beautiful connections when things are tough, and you get to see people who they become when things are tough.
Definitely. Yeah. And those are the people that stand out. Like and I think that's a key, that's an important thing. I think when you're looking at partnerships, when you're looking for investors, etc., when you're a passive investor looking at an active investor, ask them for some of these stories of when things went wrong and how they handled it. Because, things will go wrong. And that's what, like a person that's had success after success, as I say, without hitting any problems, well, you don't know that they know how to handle that, right?
Exactly. So my
yeah.
husband was saying, with all the challenges that the industry and as Honeybee we have also faced, especially because there has been a lot of other companies that have had turmoil and difficulties and all those things that are happening in our networks. So we're not strangers to challenges. And so how do you face that challenge? How do you communicate? What do you do? How do you get better from the challenge?
Yes, exactly.
You can set yourself to die because you believe on everything that's going on around you, which is a reality. But how can you get better? Because there's always opportunity out there. So how do you engage with opportunity? How do you make lemonade,
out of the
lemons? And another beautiful thing, because going back, this is a human business, this is a people to people. When we have faced challenges, our team has gotten so tight, Debbie. It's been amazing to see. So when Hydro is not operating efficiently, our team members work so hard to get through that. I see them fighting for all our clients in the construction company. We were talking offline about one of our project managers. She's incredible. She fights for all our clients. Like, she's looking for the best deal. It's just beautiful to see how they see you committed and your team gets committed. And that brings me to the next layer of, if you're just getting started and you're like, oh, it's just me. Well, you won't be for long. Like, if you want to grow, you're going to need a team. So if you're going to be building your structure, begin with the end in mind. There's this beautiful book, right? Like Covey did it, right? Like one of his recommendations, like begin with the end in mind. I think that is like, I think the book is called The Seven Rules of Very Effective People, something like that. Amazing book.
Mhm.
And he says, okay, so if you want to grow, if you want to scale, who's in your team? Oh, right now, nobody. Well, not yet. But if you want to keep growing, you can't do it all. It's just not sustainable. You're going to burn out. So what you want to do is, okay, how do I create enough to bring more people in so we can grow together? So when you're setting up your QuickBooks and your CRM and maybe your marketing campaign, maybe some automation, now we have AI. And that was my fourth recommendation. If you're now in this world and you haven't implemented AI into your company or your future companies, I highly recommend you spending some time there, because it has allowed us to automate our processes so much. It's amazing. And right now we have another, so I can probably tell you that we have, I think, 6 different programs that we run. So I can give you what works for us. So we have Monday.com for internal communication. So if you're thinking of starting something, even if it's just you today, get used to having Monday and getting some like deadlines and organization, all your documents in there. Like if you're refinancing, and that's another thing that we didn't have before. Every time we were doing a refinance, it was so much work because you had to pull so many documents and it takes so much time. So we got to a point, you grow, and it's not overnight, like it takes time, but you have to have that in your focus. So the business building, make sure that you have a place where you can send Google Drive. We use Google Drive as well. One place where you can really get those refinances going, or looking
All
for
document
finance,
deliverables needed for the
like
refinance. Yeah.
corporate documents. And so Monday.com is really good for team communication. We have a CRM that's phenomenal. We have Active Campaign right now, so we get to send our newsletters and investors information. Now we have when you start growing up and you want to do some online marketing campaigns now, our Active Campaign is now linked to a lead generation that's wonderful, that can connect to, eventually, if you're going to start fundraising, you're going to need an EMD in place. That's another conversation. That's a bigger conversation than today. But it starts from there. So your Monday.com or anything that
Another one is Asana. Like I like Asana.
Asana,
Asana is free, and you
yep,
can think up to 2 other users in Asana
amazing.
for free. So
Asana,
there are so many, like I love what you're saying,
yes.
because there are so many free
Slack,
applications that are out there that
yeah,
are free for when you're small. But
yes,
if you build it when you're like one person, like Asana or Monday, you build out all the steps.
yes,
Once you start to grow, it's already there. You just then maybe have to start paying, and then you can expand out that. But
exactly.
it's already there. You've got the foundation. It's so much easier to scale.
Yes. And the other thing is, really imagine that you're already there, and how fast can you get out of the places that you don't love? I'll give you an example. I am seriously the worst secretary in the world. Like, I am terrible. Like, it's just not my superpower. So when you start, you have to do your document, you have to handle your email, like you have to do it all. But in the mindset, that's my fifth and most important thing. With that one, we can spend some time.
Mm-hmm.
Would be, how fast can I remove myself from the tasks that are not my superpower? So let's say that you really don't like organizing files and sending emails or connecting your systems or doing, bookkeeping or whatever. So I probably say, find the structure in your size that you can dedicate some of your money in, sometimes even part-time in the beginning. So there's an amazing book for this, and it's called Buy Back Your Time from Dan Martell. And oh my God, he really nailed it because it allowed me personally to put into a structure how I operate. So if you need somebody that can help you, in our case, with Mimi, like in the construction company. So when she first started, she was a solo woman. And she's amazing at the tree. She's incredible. She can do so much. But if you want to have larger projects, you can't work alone. So I would probably say if you're starting today with one person, which is you, just think about the next step as to how could I get some help here so I can do more of what I love. So if you leave me to do secretarial work for 2 years, like I'm not going to be in my light. But if you have that clarity in your mind and say, okay, I'm going to get to this. And very important, before we get to mindset, I would probably say, if I know that a lot of people call it the job to a normal job, and there's this thing in the networks of real estate, and they almost diminish the beauty of having a trade. Like, not diminish, I don't want to say that, but like they're like, oh, when can I get rid of my job? When can I get rid of this? When can I? And I'm just going to ask you to reframe that for a bit, because I hear that so much and it's daunting. I don't know if you have the same experience, Debbie, but
I use it because people want to ditch their job. They want to ditch their 9 to 5. So that's the words they're using, definitely.
They use that word, and I find it quite interesting because my husband has a beautiful job that he loves. And it's what he wants to do, and it makes him happy. The way my job, I love what I do. I love creating structures. I love being an entrepreneur. Like, it's in my veins. Mimi was saying, like, if somebody leaves us in a beach with just an umbrella and we do nothing, we're going to think about how can we multiply the umbrella, make it better, and sell it. Like, it's just, like, even if we wanted to, we can't help being who we are.
Yes.
So, but there's a lot of doctors or accountants or people in the trades and people in the government world that would like to start in real estate. My first recommendation would be do both. Do both while you create your business. This is a business. This is not a hobby that you play with. This comes with a lot of responsibility and it needs a lot of knowledge. And what I've noticed when things are great and the market's great and there was no COVID and all these things, lots of things could happen when interest rates were really low. It was a very different time than what it is right now. So if you want to get into real estate, if you're like 2 years in, 1 year in, and you're just getting a hang of it, respect and love your job and see your projects. It might be a slower turnover of projects, but it just might be a deal. The reason why Mimi and I were full-time in this is because Mimi was already, like, our operating company is in construction. So in tough times, we are able to sustain our operations because we have an operating company that allows us to keep afloat our team. That's another business. So our land development endeavors come on top of something. So if you're not in construction, if you haven't done a renovation, if you haven't dealt with a city before, like, there's a lot of knowledge there. Like, Mimi worked in the financial institutions for 10 years. Like, she was doing risk management and she worked for EM. Like, there's a lot of knowledge that was able to transfer to our world of land development. And I've been building businesses for 25 years. So for me, setting up the structure or a marketing structure or the fundraising, it just changes how you bring your superpower into the business. So your JOB is creating superpowers for you that you will be able to bring into your dream of becoming a full-time real estate investor, if that's what you're looking for. Take your time to do the transition. And until you can replace your income with passive income, don't quit.
Also think about, so the one thing that's important to remember is that your job today, like your job is getting you mortgages. So don't think about quitting until you've maxed out that. So I think that was something that I had to refrain to. I was in a toxic work environment, so it wasn't fun at the time.
Okay.
What got me through was thinking
Mm.
about what my job, though, was helping me to achieve in real estate. And that's
Absolutely.
how my mindset was that,
Shifted.
well, I'm sticking it out. I'm doing this because it's getting me to my dream. And
Yes.
it's not, it wasn't about, and it helped me get out of that,
Oh, that's
the
amazing.
toxic, that feeling that I was getting from my toxic environment. So that's
Absolutely.
something to remember. I think, and Stefan Arnio had said this, that like the top 5 things that he would, he was going to recommend that he wished he didn't do. And the number one was quit his job. Like he just quit his job right at the beginning, and he says, don't do that.
There you go. Okay. So this wonderful fellow and I, we have something in common. No, it's just because of
Definitely.
what I hear, what I see,
Hmm.
and you know me, Debbie, I'll always give you all I have. Like anything that comes through my heart or mind, I'll give it to you, hoping that it will add to your journey. The fifth one would be, Debbie, mindset. I'll tell you
What's one mindset thing? Because we'll have to wrap up. What's the biggest mindset
the biggest mindset,
that you
go
would?
back. This is not a small one, and this is just not one. There's a lot of things coming out of it. Go back to your blueprint. So if you're just getting started, before you start, just really make a good assessment on where you are coming from and why you're doing this. And I believe that anything that's within the architecture of who you are. So if you had any, there's actually this understanding that people that are entrepreneurs come from chaotic upbringings. Because in order for you to be an entrepreneur, you need to be able to deal with chaos. You need to be able to have nothing and create something out of nothing and hold the stress of getting something built out of nothing.
Yeah,
There's a lot of
it's like
studies around
you
it.
had to have experienced the fire in
Somehow.
order to put. Yes, like somehow people have. Yeah, the biggest entrepreneur, you're right, the billionaires and things like that. If you
All of
go
them.
back to their thing, they all had. They were on Skid Row. They were like they lost everything. Like things like
Something.
that. Yeah.
Something happened. And I think the beauty of having dark angels or cycles or things that come your way when you're building something is the invitation to go deeper within who you are. Because I believe that at the end of the day, your business is a spiritual experience. And I really do. And so when I've encountered like super heavy or problems or problematic situations, I go back to my architecture and I say, okay, what is this experience trying to tell me? How can I get out of whatever cycle of thought that I have? How can I think and perceive different? Because life is abundant.
Mm-hmm.
The universe is abundant. And why am I not able to tap
Tap into.
into it? And there's an energy field around who you are that needs to be cleaned up in the process. Like, that's another massive conversation. I'm actually going to do like full-on info sessions on it because it has been a huge aspect of my life, allowing your dark early beginnings. And don't get me wrong, I have a beautiful family. I had a beautiful upbringing, lots of love. I've been deeply loved since birth. But financially speaking, there was some things that created this capacity of me to hold chaos and to create things and
Mm-hmm.
love the process of creation. But when there's challenge, you tend to go back to places that don't bring you the biggest and cleanest emotions. Like, so if you have a challenge, you experience fear or guilt or, you know, paralysis or overthinking, or you become a cheap bastard, as we call it, you know? So they call them the assassins of entrepreneurs. So being able to recognize who you are in the journey and who are you becoming, who do you need to become to get to your goals. I think that would be the biggest recommendation. Like, yes, analyze your performance, get your teams in place, get your business planning. All those things are great. And most times people forget about themselves. And the person that's creating all the systems and all these things is you. And it's going to be a reflection of you.
Exactly. So that's the first thing. It's that you have to develop that mindset first, because that mindset will lead you to be able to, because this is the person I want to be, and that person will create the systems, will put those things in place to become that person.
Yes. So who are you becoming? Would be actually, let's reverse this. So let's begin from like 5 should be the 1. So
we'll count it backwards, everybody.
Yes, yeah, we totally did this backwards, but
we started at 5 and we were going at 1.
We said we're just gonna have fun today, and this is gonna be awesome. And we didn't want to have any kind of structure, so it's been
it's just
so beautiful. But yeah, if I would put this in an order, I would probably start with your architecture first. And sometimes you don't see it until something hits. So I'll give you very, as usual, very vulnerable, as I can't even help it if I wanted to. But so when a few companies started to go bankrupt in our networks, a lot of fear kicked in for me. A lot of fear. And I said, oh my God, like,
what if this happens to us?
Yeah,
okay.
Of course. Yeah. So I had to sit with that fear, and I actually had to look for help. And I said, you know what? Something is telling me inside of me that I need some clearing. It's a good invitation for me to get stronger. And if this is what the environment is saying, I need to get better. I need to get stronger. So I actually decided to do a 75 hard challenge and say, okay, I'm going to review my mindset. I'm going to review my body. I'm going to review my nutrition. I'm going to review my sleeping patterns, like everything, because if things are going to get tough for a little bit, I need to be up to par and make sure that I'm in complete light to be able to think in a different way that will create a different situation for us. So that fear, that dark angel, allowed us to, and Mimi went through the exact same process at the same time, same week, because it was a pretty crazy week, actually. When it happened, I said, okay, no, like we need to rethink this. Mimi was into the same, and we actually went and did this crazy workshop to bend reality and say, okay, so this is what the world is saying. We're going to go the other way, and we're going to create this beautiful experience for us and our investors, and we're going to do this in a different way. So again, it was an opportunity for us to step up and get better.
Yeah. So acknowledge those negative feelings. You need to acknowledge them, but don't wallow in them. Figure out how you can use them to make it better, to make life better.
Exactly. Yeah. And if you have any limiting belief, because when you're afraid, all those limiting beliefs come through.
Comes out, yeah.
So you want to be able to see them, acknowledge them, and say, okay, why are you here? Do I want you in my life? Will you serve me? I went to this wonderful, I do a lot of masterminds, like I'm always learning. I go to all the, I don't know, everything that I can humanly possibly to keep learning. I'm a reader, like I can't stop learning. And one of the speakers said, whatever doesn't serve you is poison. So it's a good invitation to say, okay, what are my habits? So the first thing that I did is like read again Atomic Habits. What are my little details, little things that I can do in my morning practice? Like, do you have a morning practice? Like I wake up every day at 5 a.m., do my weight training, my meditation, my learning, my gratitude, and then I keep going on my day. Because if things get tough and you don't have a morning practice, then the day is going to do whatever the day wants with you, because, so those little things I've learned through time, and you just get stronger because of the challenge. So I hope this helps.
Oh, yes. Amazing conversation, Ali. And we can talk for hours, but
I know
we're out of time. But thank you so much for so many great tips.
My pleasure.
I think that the biggest one is what we just ended with, is that mindset is really important. So work on your mindset. I think as real estate investors, like people, a lot of us come in, and it doesn't matter whether you're in your 20s or you're in your 50s. You always think, why didn't I know this yesterday? I should have started yesterday. So we jump right into it and just wants to get going. But I
Yes.
think the important thing is to step back a bit, don't rush to find that first investment like right away. Work on that mindset, work on having systems in place. So as you're, like you were saying, as you buy that first property, what were all the things you have to do? Create that checklist, create it in an application where you can make it reusable. Next, when you have to do your accounting, put it in QuickBooks, like, instead of on pieces of paper. I mean, I made that mistake. I didn't
I think
transfer,
we all have
I
in
was,
the
and I
beginning.
should have known better, because in my corporate life, that was my job, to go into organizations and get them to get rid of waste,
Right.
improve their processes. I went and go, you need to document this, you need to automate this, but I didn't do it in my own practice, because like you said, a lot of us get into real estate investing treating it like we do stocks,
Exactly. It's
but
not.
not as a business. It is a business,
It is a
and we
business.
need to get into it as that, with that business owner mindset in mind.
Absolutely. The
Right.
other
So
thing that I would recommend for anybody, we're doing the CEO course with Mimi. It's wild, it's crazy, lots of homework. But one thing that they asked us to do is the Kolbe test. KOLBE test.
yeah.
Super recommended for people that are just getting started. Like, I wish I would have known this. Again, going back to I wish I would have known. Now I know, and it's great, but I didn't. I have a lot of my CEO friends that don't hire anybody that doesn't have a Kolbe test done. And I've done this like myself, Mimi, and now all our team did the Kolbe test, and we had an actual meeting with a Kolbe specialist to analyze how to improve the quality of your work as a team. But you don't need to start there. The reason why, if you're a solo person growing into a team, do it yourself, because you will get so much information about who you are and how you operate. And they are based on 4 different elements. Maybe on the next
We'll
session,
do another podcast, and let's talk
I
about
would
mindsets
love
things.
to
Yes, let's
dive into
do that.
mindset and actual understanding of your superpower. So anything,
Yes,
really anything you need.
let us set up another call another
Yes.
time, and there'll be another topic for a podcast.
Yes.
But this has been great. We've covered some of the things, due diligence you should be looking for in land development.
Yes.
And then we've covered those elements that, from a business perspective, so building your real estate investing business, things
Yes.
that you should be doing right at the beginning. So
It's so funny. Like, I wish I could give you all my life in an hour and have everybody just, I want to give everybody the chip and say, take it, run with it, and
brain
enjoy it. And
brain
just,
download.
yes, so many books, so many, so,
Well,
so
it gives us lots more opportunities to chat with you, Ali, and lots more topics that we could cover. So
absolutely
we are
anything you
so
need.
aligned, though. Everything you're saying is exactly the things that I'm coaching on. It's building that business around
Mhm.
the real estate investing and using like simple apps. So my background is IT. So,
Amazing.
like how to use Asana, how to use ChatGPT. I created a monster out of Francis Wong, out of using ChatGPT. But there are apps there that you can use that's
Yes.
free of charge,
Yes.
that you can use to simplify. Just automating like Calendly
Everything.
or 10 to 8 to, just automating your calendar, get other people to book into your time, so you're not spending that time going back and forth. Go, what time's best for you?
Oh
Right.
my God. Yes. Calendly is a savior, I tell you.
So
Oh my
that's
goodness.
something, everybody. You're doing lots of networking, etc. Get Calendly. I
Get your
think that's the
Calendly
number
in
one.
order.
Yes.
I mean,
Or
so
something
many
like it.
tools.
There's
But
actually something called TidyCal. If you go into AppSumo,
okay.
it's like Calendly. And
Okay.
right now, if you go into it's AppSumo, you get these apps like lifetime ones for very cheap. They're like beta versions or
Yes.
kind of thing. So
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
TidyCal, I think it's being offered for $29.99 US lifetime
Oh my God.
use of it, and it works like Calendly, right? So there are cheap free options out there to kind of give you back your time, and where you can spend it on revenue
Being
earning
exactly. And that's the other
activities.
thing. Like sometimes the head of the company gets in the weeds too much.
Hmm.
And oh my God, I wish okay, 2 minutes. My uncle, he created a crazy company down in South America. And when I was young, he used to tell me, okay, when you grow up, you're gonna have a desk like mine, because I used to go to his office and he had a lot of people working for him. And he's like, you don't need anything but a white cloth in your office. And I'm like, what? Sorry, it was red, a red cloth. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like, yeah, you just need a red cloth on top of your desk. And I said, okay. He's like, just think about it. And I couldn't figure it out. And I'm like, why just, and I was young, like probably 8 or 9. I'm like, I couldn't figure it out. And he's my godfather. And so one day I'm like, I can't figure it out. You have to tell me, like, what is it with this red cloth thing? And he's like, because your work in your company is to think. You should not do anything but think. And I'm like, okay, so why do you
Why do
need
you need a red cloth
the
for?
red cloth for? And he basically put his feet on top of the desk. And he's like, because when you're done thinking, you're gonna clean the dirt of your shoes that were in the desk. And I always tell this to Mimi because one of the most successful CEOs that I know, they don't even have an email. They really only think. And so 40 years or something after, I'm not quite there just with a red cloth, but all to say, when you're growing, your brain needs to be in a maximum operational skill, and you need a team to help you get through the doing.
Hmm.
And as a head of a company, start with the end in mind. Like in the beginning, I sweep, I clean, I know how to mud, I know how to lay floor. Trust me, like I've done it all. But eventually, with time, hopefully, we will all get to have the red cloth and be able to really expand this to something truly magnificent.
So the phrase "don't work in your business, work on your business."
Correct.
So
Yes.
that's where we all want to get
We
to
all
be,
want to be on the business, not in the
not in the
business,
business.
because when you get caught up in the weeds, it's very difficult to grow it
Yeah,
because there's
definitely.
only so much time in your
Yeah,
day.
we all have the same amount of time. So
We
time management doesn't exist. You cannot manage time. You
No, you
can
can't.
prioritize what you do and the results that you get from
Yes. And
what
that
you
and that
do.
and that is the conversation when you're growing your business. Like, how do you get the best out of your brain and how do you create amazing teams?
Yeah, definitely.
I think that would be the end of it. And then we'll
Yeah.
go and then into the next one.
Thank you so much for your time, Ali. Have a
My
wonderful
pleasure.
day, and we'll chat again
You
soon.
You too. Take